West Bank, where a Palestinian group claimed to have launched a homemade rocket at a nearby Israeli settlement on Tuesday morning. The group, calling itself the Al Ayash Battalion, which is backed by Hamas, said it launched the rocket from a Jenin area toward the settlement of Shaked and released footage claiming as much. The launch is the latest in a series of mostly unsuccessful attempts recently by the group, as the rockets contain no explosives and fly mostly distances of less than 100 meters or 328 feet. There were no immediate reports of any damages or injuries near Shaked. The Israel Defense Forces has located the rocket and the launcher in Palestinian territory. And with me here in studio is our senior defense correspondent, Jonathan Regev. Jonathan, good afternoon to you. Who is this group to begin with?
They're a local group associated with Hamas. In the area of Jenin, we do not see the terror groups anymore as we've seen in the past. One that is solely Hamas and one that is solely Islamic Jihad and one that is solely Fatah. But sort of a mix of militants together, owing to the fact that there's no real strong central government. So these militants were also criminals, by the way. The people that suffer from them the most are the local population. They gather together and they enjoy quite a lot of weapon smuggling funded by Iran. When we hear of smuggling attempts thwarted in the Jordan border, when they're not thwarted, this is where they get. And so these are groups that are backed by Hamas, but they're basically local militants and gathering ammunition, and we see the results.
Now, Israelis are used to seeing rockets being fired from the southern border and even sometimes from the northern border, but this is rare that there's rockets being fired in the West Bank, which many Israelis consider part of Israel.
That is, and the concerning issue is that it is becoming less and less rare. This is, I think, the fifth or the sixth time that we're seeing such attempts. None of the attempts were successful. As you mentioned, the rockets, if they fly to a very short distance. So they're unsuccessful, but it's a trend, it's a pattern, and what may be unsuccessful today may be successful tomorrow. So Israel has to make sure it stops. This is stopped, and this is stopped now, because we saw in Gaza how these things, the evolution of these things. If initially rockets from Gaza were flying only to the Gaza border communities, maybe as far as Derot, now we're saying they arrived to the Tel Aviv area and further north. So these are things that have to be stopped now. We have to remember that as opposed to Gaza, the Israeli army is present everywhere in the West Bank and is able to go into Jenin for major operations to try and stop these things. But it's a cat and mouse game. The Israeli army is doing one thing, the Palestinian factions are doing another.
And how much are these factions influenced by other terror groups? You mentioned that they were backed by Hamas and that there's weapons being smuggled in from possibly Iran. But also, Ronen Bar, the head of the Shin Bet, back in May, said that they killed what seemed to be the leader of these rocket groups who belong to Palestinian Islamic Jihad.
Yes, because these are local militants. They don't really pledge allegiance to any group. They're backed by the Islamic Jihad. They're backed by Hamas. Any group will, of course, be very happy to back any local organization which is attempting to fire rockets into Israel, saying, look, they belong to us. The truth is they do not belong to anyone. They're supported by Hamas. They're supported by Islamic Jihad, yes, but they're basically local militants, which they're made up of people which in the past perhaps used to belong to other groups or factions, and now these are just local militants gathering together and trying to do whatever they can.